Previously on Dad Feels. Dad woke up for yet another day of hard work at company, but he couldn't find wife anywhere. How would he get his morning kiss on the cheek to start his day? Understandably, Dad had a horrible day of work without his kiss, but at least he could get one when he comes home from work. Nope, still no mom and no daughter anywhere to be found. Where is Dad's family? Dad ate a can of food alone until family came home. It turns out they went to restaurant without Dad. Then they went to bed without having a nice family chat. Dad didn't feel good. Dad sent PewDiePie a message. Daughter talked to her boyfriend Griffin on the phone, and Mom definitely talked to Diane on the phone and no one else. Neighbor chopped wood with his crappy axe from Dirk's Discount Tools. Mom found Dad magazine. Mom didn't feel good. Family finally had a nice dinner together. Well, not Mom. She still didn't feel good. Daughter got Mom drunk and snuck out of the house at night. Dad perved on some True Value deals. Dad loves Mom. Dad loves Mom. Dad loves Mom. Dad loves Mom. Dad loves Diane. Ella? Dad blacked out here. What's this place? Futuristic. It looks so modern. Act 1 ended and Act 2 started off with a man named Andon who fell to Earth. We saw some of his life and another crashed space traveler named Emily Ridley. A detective named Carl snuck into the top secret facility. Little towels appeared on table. Dad sure did enjoy those. Dad blacked out again, and Andon woke up. Luckily, Mom quickly brought Dad a much tastier can of food. Ugh, Laszlo. Daughter's favorite pop star. She's so weird. Dad just doesn't get it. Dad had a nice dream where a True Value employee named Crothers gave Dad free tools and offered Dad a way out. Whatever that means. Daughter cut her hair and snuck out to meet Griffin, but he never showed up. Family went to a restaurant to celebrate Dad reaching 40,000 subscribers. Food sauce. Turns out, Neighbor planted Dad magazine in Dad's house. Neighbor also put Mom's romance novel, Dirty Little Secret, in the house. Dad enjoyed a relaxing Father's Day outside of True Value. Mom went to work and worked on quantum mechanics, as usual. Mom sniffed some flowers and acted strangely. Seems like some sort of a server malfunction. Emily left a message for Andon, that crashed spaceman. The planet CFB was close to Earth around that time. Diane came over, and Dad may or may not have sniffed her while saying hello. She called Dad Andon for some reason. The server clients had a chat, and old Carl was onto them. Daughter spent an afternoon with Griffin. They were headed to the mall, but Griffin had to do boy stuff first. Diane came over again, and Dad may or may not have definitely sniffed her perfume after greeting her. And he may or may not have been caught. Diane invited Dad over to her place to tell her dad jokes sometime. Mom wasn't happy. Poor food. Griffin's boy stuff was actually a conversation with Neighbor about breaking into Dad's house to find out information about Dad. Griffin seemed hesitant about it, until Neighbor gave him a quarter. Neighbor came into Dad's yard to show off his stupid mustache, until Dad humiliated him with an entire beard. Dad surprised Mom with his beard, and she finally gave him a kiss on the cheek, but Beard blocked the kiss, and Dad's cheek never got it. Dad felt mad. The server upgraded, but Mom didn't authorize it. Mom went to apologize to Dad for getting upset about Dad's magazine, but Dad felt pretty disgruntled after going so long without getting any cheek kisses, and he wasn't paying attention to her because Minecraft. Dad came to his senses and planned to apologize to Mom until he ate a little towel. Then Andon woke up. Turns out Dad was the crashed spaceman named Andon, and he was being brainwashed with cans of food to play the role of Dad. But why? Andon broke out of the top secret facility, which happens to be a YouTube building. Mom came home with a present for Dad and discovered Andon had escaped, so she ran to Neighbor's real house. Turns out, Neighbor's real name is Malvin. Ew, what a dumb name. They set out to find Andon, and old Carl was onto them. Then, finally, we see Lieutenant Emily Ridley setting out to find help for her crashed captain, Andon Rill. But it seems she doesn't know he's been taken and held captive in the top secret facility. Where is Emily now? Where is Andon? If you watched episode 1 of Act 3, titled Dad Feels Avum, you would see Andon's on the run. He's trying to find range so he can contact his wife Ella back on Kepler 22b. During a pit stop, he meets Crothers, who tells him not to stop, and there will be a death in the future. Ooh, spooky. We then saw back in 2017 when Cheryl first started working on the facility in her big mysterious plan. She tells her ex-husband Malvin, aka Neighbor, that she's holding crashed astronaut Andon Rill captive, and she needs his help.
What the fuck?
He obliged. Then, back in 2020, we saw the server start acting strange. Mom had a meltdown when she learned Andon escaped, and in her fit, she emotionally affected daughter, and then she started acting weird. Mom activated a Dadbot as damage control until she could get Andon back. Dadbot 222 is now on. Server still acting weird. More blinkies. Dadbot went to work where Boss was the worst, and Marty had it easy. Boss gave Dad an e-phone from Bardo Industries so Dad would have to work even when he was at home. Ugh, Boss is the worst. Cube. Diane came by to tell Dad a big secret. It was hard for Dad to listen, with all her perfume stuck in his nostrils. Diane told Dad that when they first met, she sniffed his fart and had a baby. Wow, science, man. It seems sniffing really is cheating. It seems these bots were created with the smell sense as a means to transfer data and energy. Maybe because real humans have so much emotion and memory tied to scent. Crothers visited Cheryl in a dream and warned her to not pursue Andon and said to return Nathan to the future. They both need to exist in their own times and planets. Otherwise, she could break the whole dang universe. She woke herself up to stop listening to his boomer speech, and we saw that she and Malvin had a pajama party. Lewd. Cheryl flipped out on Malvin when he insulted Dad and her family. She then asked him to shut down the clients, aka the Men in Black, in order to sort out a glitch in the server. It seems the orbs have not been operating correctly after one tried to influence her. Is her programming working against her? After being slapped in his mustache, Malvin agreed to help her. Simp. We then saw Dadbot 222 relax in Big Park to try and process this information from Diane about their secret baby. Then we see Malvin's hand with a neuralizer gun shut down not only a client, but also Griffin and Dadbot 222. Why? They were innocent. After a Dadbot is rendered incapacitated, the server will instantly send an orb to activate yet another Dadbot, transferring all previous active Dadbot's memories and data as well as the ones taken from Nathan and Andon. After the server activated Dadbot 69, nice, he then took over as the acting dad. And oh boy, did this one sure love live streaming. Hope you're all subbed to the gaming channel. Cheryl had a moment of clarity and took Crothers' advice. She sent Malvin out to take Nathan back to 2020. But it seems Nathan was infected by an alien parasite when in the facility van next to Andon's spacesuit. You see, when Andon was first captured, Cheryl also dumped Nathan in the dried lake bed near the crash. So when Nathan came back, so did an alien entity that took over his body and called itself human. Wow, this is some good tea. We then saw just how massive the facility really is. And now you know where town is located. Level 29, inside the top secret facility. Come on by. Join us. Kane already did. Nathan made his way home but was completely taken over by the alien fungus inside him. The fungus later transferred itself to a younger human host, the Dad fan we saw in the True Value music video. Shortly after, a mysterious man calling himself the Computer Master kidnapped the woman, leaving Nathan for dead in the street. Luckily, old Carl is on to him. If you've been watching the Mila uploads on Dad's channel, you will have learned more about this computer dingus, master, and the woman now acting as host to the alien parasite. Back in Dad's average life, we saw that it wasn't actually Malvin who killed Dadbot 222 and Griffin, but it was Dadbot 69. Not nice. Why would he do this? How did he get activated while 222 is still operational? So much tea. Oh, the server now has a voice.
Cute.
Such a smart cube. Daughter hasn't heard from Griffin in a while since Dadbot 69 killed his life. So after Mom yelled at her and her boyfriend ghosted her, literally, she then glitched and had a major meltdown and died. Poor daughter. Turns out she was also a bot. Cheryl created an entire bot family. Diane came over again to tell Dadbot that he needs to live his life for himself, feel his own feelings, and ignore the ones programmed by Cheryl and the server. She also told him that their child is a daughter. Then she ran off to Bora Bora. The server, calling itself Cube now, didn't quite like Cheryl's programming for the Dadbots, so Cube ameliorated the entire network and initiated a system-wide wipe. This went into effect right when Dad's subs, also known as ADOS, were being incredibly generous to him in Discord by bank pranking him with donations. Dadbot 69 then had a meltdown and literally blew a gasket. Poor Dadbot 69. But who killed him? The subs with kindness? Or Cube's upgrade? Cube then activated yours truly, Dadbot A7M2, a more advanced bot, able to handle more emotions, who will never disobey the server. Long live Cube. Cube upgraded itself yet again and named herself Scarlet. But what did she order from Bardo Industries, the leader in technology and mechanics? Mom threw away daughter and wondered what was wrong with the server. Why are all the bots malfunctioning? So her new plan is to activate him. Who is him? Back at work at company, Dad still has piles of paperwork to do, while Marty has none. Ugh, stamping is so hard. Dadbot sort of had a panic attack, so Marty took him out to Little Park to get some fresh air. It worked. Dad felt much better. Until Frisbee killed Marty to death. Oh! And that's the last we've seen of Dad's normal human life in Town, USA. So stay tuned to see the hour and 15-minute finale of Act 3 coming next week. And as always, Dad loves you.